Good evening, everyone. It has been a while since we have done all of these, and I'm eager to know the answers to a few interesting questions. As they say, the only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. The markets have started booming, but are you able to spot the right opportunity in the current markets? Are you confused about your current approach? Want to build a new strategy for the current market? Well, it is rightly said that a pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity, while the optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. I, Ayushi Murarka, welcome you to our 14th webinar of Wealth Set powered by Nike Group companies. And our today's session is an attempt to answer what's next after the markets being at all-time high. But just before we start our today's webinar, I feel delighted to share with all of you one of our happy clients' experience with us. So let us all listen to what he has to say.
Hi, my name is Amit Sanghvi and we are manufacturers of plastic bottles and containers. We have been associated with Nike Wealth for more than 10 years now and they have been a great help to us for our investments. Earlier we were quite conservative with our investments, but with the help of Nike Wealth we have opened up to all the options in investments. Nike Wealth has always been a family to us. Our RM Chitra ji has helped us a lot and she is always prompt with her service. Nayak Group is quite different from the other advisors as they understand our needs for investments and they always have a plan and suggestion. We are quite happy and satisfied with the services from Nayak Wealth as they keep a track of our portfolios and suggest us changes from time to time. I frequently do recommend my friends and families to invest and be associated with Nayak Wealth, and some have also joined them and they are quite happy with their services. Lastly, but not the least, Nayak Wealth is the solution to all your investment problems. Thank you.
As the time is clocking, Nike family is only growing bigger and merrier. And with this, I would also like to introduce our upcoming Inner Circle session, which will be organized exclusively for our investors in the next week. Stay tuned to know the only thing you need for wealth creation. I now have with us Mr. Amay Godse, who has some exciting activities for all of us. And before we get answers to some difficult questions, we have a few simple questions for you to answer. Over to you, Amay.
Thank you, Ayushi. Thanks a ton. I'm sure that, as Ayushi mentioned, that this is the 14th webinar we are doing. The entire lockdown, we have been doing many webinars, and some of you who have been coming to these webinars regularly must be aware about the polls which we conduct. But I would like to actually tell you that today the polls which we are going to conduct are slightly different and a unique one because till now what used to happen is that we used to check the current trends and what is happening, but our today's polling questions are only two polling questions over there, and those are very simple ones. I'll just tell you is that what we want to I mean the reason why we have kept these polls is this time along with the poll, once the Pankaj sir's session is over, we are definitely going to give some illustration also over that. So I'm sure that you will would like to see those illustrations later on. So please stay tuned once Pankaj sir's session is done. So I'll just get on with the polling question. So our first question will come to you right now. I hope you can see the polling question on your screen. For all of those who are live with us on Facebook, probably they might not be able to see the question. As of now, we have more than 180 participants, and I'm getting the responses from people. If you had invested in 15 years back, which asset class would have given you higher returns? The options are real estate and equity mutual fund. More than 50%, 60% people have answered. So I'll just wait for another 15 seconds and I'll stop the poll. I'm sure even Pankaj sir will be, and the outcome which we are getting is something interesting. I'll just end the poll over here and I'll share the results. So as I had asked you that, if you had invested 15 years back, and that is, mind you, is the important point, that in long term, which asset class would have given you higher returns? There are 31% participant are mentioning real estate, and 69% are mentioning equity mutual fund. So as I mentioned earlier also, that I will give you the illustration for the same post Pankaj sir session. I'll just move on to the next question. The second question is almost the similar question. It's only the timeline is different. If you had invested 10 years back, which asset class would have given you better returns? Equity mutual fund and gold. Now, this is something where I know gold is emotionally far more dearer to investors. So I'm hoping for a different outcome over here. Let's see. No, but it is not the same, I think. So I'll just close the poll because more than 70% people have already voted. So the outcome is, of course, equity mutual fund by a whopping 66%, gold is 34%. So we'll definitely talk about both these questions and your answers, but I don't want to make you wait further. I'm sure that all of you are eager to listen to Pankaj right now. So over to you, Ayushi.
Now to the answers that we are all looking forward to, I would like to invite our speaker for the day, Mr. Pankaj Tibrewal, Senior Executive Vice President and Senior Fund Manager at Kotak AMC. He holds a master degree in finance from Manchester University. He has also been featured in the top 10 fund managers in India for 4 consecutive years from 2016 to 2019 as per the Outlook Business. He is currently managing schemes like Kotak Emerging Equity, Kotak Small Cap, and Kotak Equity Hybrid. After this level of exhausting job, he too likes to calm his brainy mind by listening to good Hindi music, traveling, and certainly reading. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Pankaj Tibrewal to understand his view on the moving markets. We feel honored to have you with us today. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Ayushi. And good evening to all of you, wherever you guys are joining in from. The session's topic is little bit tough because for the last 20 years, I've always been asked this question that markets have, gone up. Is it the right time? Or on the contrary, if markets come down, people expect market नीचे आ गया और कितना नीचे फिर अपने invest करेंगे. And this timing of the market probably is my biggest weakness to predict. But I think I have seen over last 2 decades, many people missing out the big picture in order to time it very closely. What I'll do in the next 45 minutes, I'll make it a knowledge sharing session and I will share with you, all of you, what I am seeing on ground. And then probably linking it to the market, and at some point of time trying to make sure that the narrative which is there on the ground, that it's only liquidity which is driving force, is actually not true. On the market side, obviously this year is coming to a close, and what a year, friends, this has been. We started January. By mid of March, the markets had corrected by almost 35%. And COVID was widespread. COVID didn't respect any borders, and it was all across every country. From there on 23rd March till date, markets are up more than 70%. And many stocks have multiplied 2x, 3x, 4x. And sitting in March and April, everybody was pessimist. And people were saying that probably 1 year, next 2 years, we don't know what will happen. And markets in its own wisdom surprised all of us. So it's very difficult sitting now also to predict market is heading up or down. But one thing which probably always helps us is valuations. And that's something which tells us whether markets are overvalued, undervalued, or fairly valued. In March, when we were there, the reason we had the lowest cash balance in our funds was the fact that market cap to GDP had come down to 45-50%. And we were pricing in one of the worst scenarios, that this pandemic will last for 2, 3, 4 years. And even the best of the companies were available at 30 to 40% discount to their intrinsic value. And that was the opportunity. Today, as markets have gone up, so have the valuations. And valuations, friends, are no longer cheap. And one should keep in mind that valuations today are discounting FY22 earnings quite a bit and the recovery. Having said that, there are some important things which are happening on the ground as well as in economy, which I think you all should be aware about. The first thing, friends, is the earnings. Finally, stocks are slave of earnings. अगर कंपनियों के earnings बढ़ते हैं, तभी stock market in a medium term rewards that. And for the last 4-5 years, it's been a wolf calling. हम लोग हर साल predict करते हैं कि 15-20% से earning बढ़ेगी. But on the contrary, earnings have been rising by 6-7%. And the loss pool by many PSU banks, by telecom companies, have been dragging the good work done by some other sectors and companies. And hence, for the last 4-5 years, we have seen Nifty earnings growth in the region of 5-6-7%. But somehow September quarter, friends, came as a surprise to all of us. And the 2-3 things which probably separated September quarter with the rest of the quarters in the past was that India Inc. saw the highest margin expansion, not only compared to its history, but compared to the rest of the Asia Pacific region and other emerging markets. This is what the Indian entrepreneur has always been known for. And always the foreigners have rewarded Indian entrepreneurship, except the last 3-4 years, over the last 15-20 years, and how institutions and companies have been created by Indian entrepreneurs. That instinct we again saw in September. You all will know that in March, April, early part of May, everything was locked down. Every company closed down their factories, no production, zero billing. And everybody thought that probably this could extend, we don't know how long. And hence everybody went for a severe cost cutting, rationalization. And I give this analogy. मैं एक एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ, जब गाड़ी 100 के स्पीड पर चल रही होती है तो कोई उस गाड़ी को रोक के उसके नट बोल्ट को ढीला नहीं टाइट नहीं करता है. जब आपको पता है कि गाड़ी रुक गई है, तब आप इनवर्ड लुक करते हो, उसके नट बोल्ट को टाइट करते हो कि नेक्स्ट जब गाड़ी स्टार्ट हो तो वो 100-120 के स्पीड पर विदाउट एनी इंटरप्शन चले. एंड वही कॉर्पोरेट इंडिया ने किया कि लास्ट 3-4 साल में जब आपकी गाड़ी ठीक चल रही थी तो आपने कभी सोचा नहीं कि मैं कहाँ कॉस्ट बचा सकता हूँ, वॉलंटरी इनवॉलंटरी, कैसे मैं कैश फ्लोस को ठीक कर सकता हूँ. लेकिन जब गाड़ी कंप्लीटली रुक गई, जब जीरो प्रोडक्शन जीरो रेवेन्यू हुआ, तो हर कॉर्पोरेट, हर एंटरप्रेन्योर, हर मैनेजमेंट टीम ने इनवर्ट देखा एंड दे डिड अ फैंटास्टिक जॉब. एंड हेंस corporate India saw the highest margin expansion in the quarter of September. The second important point was cash flows. Finally, top line is vanity, bottom line is sanity, and cash in bank is reality. Top line से कोई मतलब नहीं अगर वो profit में convert नहीं हो, और उस counting profit का कोई मतलब नहीं जो cash flow में convert ना हो. और across sectors, across companies हमने देखा कि cash flow काफी strong था. लोगों ने अपने डेटर पर काम किया, अपने इन्वेंटरीज पर काम किया, उसे कम कटेल किया. कैश एंड कैरी में काफ़ी कंपनीज FMCG मूव कर गई. होम बिल्डिंग प्रोडक्ट्स वाली कंपनियां मूव कर गई. एंड इसका नतीजा ये हुआ कि we saw one of the best balance sheets and cash flows of corporate India across many sectors. There were sectors which are still under pain. There are sectors which are still under stress. We all know that school buses, transportation, leisure and entertainment, hospitality, retail malls, uh, retailing. And that in our view sums up to about 3.5–4% of the services as a percentage of GDP, which are still under pain, and hence which is dragging the GDP down. So not all is not hunky-dory, but barring those sectors, majority of the sectors like cement, steel, consumer discretionary, banking, private sector banks, a lot of them did a very good job in the September quarter. And just to put numbers in perspective, the overall top 1,000 companies declared the highest ever profit in the history of corporate India in any quarter. More than 1,35,000 crores of profit was declared by corporate India by the top almost 1,000 companies, which we have not seen in good days also. So finally, the mojo of Indian corporate started to come, and they showed a very strong thing. Obviously, in the December and the March quarter, some part will be reversed, friends, which is the margins, because salary cost will be reversed, advertisement expense will come in. But finally, we are seeing top line growth coming back. We are seeing metal prices increasing, which will help the Indian corporates on the top line growth and operating leverage. And in our view, over the next 2 quarters, earnings growth still should be good. In the September quarter, after many quarters, we saw 17% earnings growth for Nifty companies. And when you look at the broader market, it was higher than 17%. About 70% of corporate India surprised on the estimates on the upside, which we have not seen for a very long period of time. And hence, if we rewind ourselves to June, everybody was saying कि ये पूरा market liquidity पर चल रहा है, fundamentals में कुछ दम नहीं है. But next 3–4 महीने में market showed us that market was a lead indicator and economy was a lag indicator. And the frequency data which we track, friends, are showing signs of uptick across GST collections in October, early part of November and mid-November. We saw the traffic movements, we seen the bank transaction data, we saw the GST data which came in for October month. A lot of those high frequency data have been very strong. Obviously, after festive season, we would see some dip, which normally happens. But our ground feedback suggests that November also across sectors have been quite decent on a year-on-year basis. Because last year, November, Diwali was in October. Diwali was not in November. So I think broadly what we are saying is that economy is trying to find its foot. Yes, there are challenges, but somehow corporate India is coming back quite strongly. The second thing which we are seeing, friends, is big is getting bigger. In every sector, whether it be banking, cement, aviation, we are seeing that the top 4, 5, 6 guys are gaining market share and consolidating themselves. And those are part of the listed space in the equity markets. And in every sector, we are seeing the leader taking away market share from the tail of that sector. And the tail, which probably is a small player, is either not getting working capital credit or having issues on the production line on supply chains. So I think that's something which is very important. The third, I think, important part, friends, is a 2–3 big changes which I think we should all be aware of. That after a long time, I think India is showing signs of manufacturing coming back. And I would like to draw your attention towards 2 important parts where we all may be cynics, but we should keep this thought in our mind, because finally, if manufacturing comes back, India will find its own growth. Last 10 साल से manufacturing has been stagnant at around $400 to $450 billion in India, which is roughly about 15% of our GDP, 15–16%. After a long time, I think government is doing right things in right areas. And PLI scheme, friends, is in the step in the right direction. It has come at a time when, the apprehension against China is at its peak across countries we are speaking about. And being a reader of history and being a believer in history, every country gets a chance to show the supremacy over the next 1 or 2 decades. And there comes a time. I remember post World War II, Japan and Germany were devastated. And nobody thought they would emerge as superpowers over the next 2 decades. But they worked internally. They worked on their automobile industry, and automobile industry in both the countries made sure that they become the superpowers of the world. Similarly, in the mid 80s and early 90s, China went through a lot of stress. And I think we saw the next 2 decades belong to China. This is a time, friends, where we all have gone through in the last 3, 4, 5 years, a lot of changes, reforms, what we believe India needed for very long. And nobody is willing to believe that good times can come. But let me point you to 2, 3 things. One is the PLI part. The government has introduced PLI schemes across. And our sense is over the next 4, 5 years, this could, if executed well, this could be a game changer for India industrials and Indian manufacturing sector. The incremental revenues which PLI can generate over the 10, 12 sectors which government has identified, and I'll come upon it, could be in order of $150 billion incremental sales. And it could enhance our GDP growth by 1.5 to 2%, the value add which I'm talking about. What do you mean by that? The first scheme which has seen licenses been given out is electronics. India was worried that after oil, electronics is becoming the second largest import item in the country, more than $50 billion. Government was worried that the current account deficit could enlarge because of electronics. And with this mobile thing coming in and getting extended to ACs, televisions, I think over the next 4, 5 years, I am quite optimistic that India would have an ecosystem of electronics on its own. If you go to buy iPhone 11, for the first time, you are seeing it not only designed in California, but assembled in India. And I think with licenses given now, people are putting factories at the ground level now, whether it be the 3 suppliers of Apple or anybody else. Now that it's not if, but just the time when, how long will it take for the factories on the mobile to come in? And slowly, I think the Taiwanese guys, which does camera module, motor modules, display screen, all will come and set up the ecosystem, because the large assembly lines of the larger brands will be in India. And I think there's a defined production which you need to achieve to claim those benefits. And 4-5% benefit, friends, is not a small amount. Every brand wants that benefit, whether it's for domestic market or for exports. And similarly, the government has done that in 12 sectors. We all know pharma, API, electronics, which is lighting, ACs, defense, auto ancillary, and so on and so forth. And my sense is that there's a decent amount of interest compared to the rest of the schemes in the past by the corporate India. And we have seen that in electronics now. Electronic itself can generate 9 to 10 lakh crores of revenues in the next 4-5 years. And that's a huge number we are talking about. So after a long time, I think the government initiative towards making self-sufficient Atmanirbhar or the PLI scheme, making a tool, is a very, very important one, friends. Don't ignore that. The second one is the apprehension about using Chinese products globally, not in India, but globally. And I think with 15-16 lakh people dying globally as we speak, 7 crore people getting infected, I think the pain is real in the minds of people globally. And I think this is throwing a big opportunity for us in many, many sectors. Let me illustrate you with a few examples, which will probably make things clearer for all of you. There's a place called Morbi in India, which is the largest or the second largest tiles cluster in the world. We used to do less than 1% of our total import in US. We used to have a market share of just less than 1% as late as last year, same time November. Friends, all of you will be surprised to know that as we speak, our market share from 1%, less than 1% has moved to 8%. We never used to do, more than 100 crores in the total year of exports to US. As we speak, we are doing more than 100 to 150 crores of exports to US. And every month, Morbi is doing total exports of about 1,000 to 1,200 crores. This year, Morbi itself will do 10,000 to 12,000 crores of exports just of ceramic tiles and, flooring. This was never thought of, that in a year's period, we would take so fast the market share from Chinese guys. And that is, I am seeing sector after sector where many of the sectors where India had a very low market share, either the US government or European government are putting anti-dumping duties, or some kind of consumer preferences against Chinese products, and that's actually leading to supply chain disruption. And corporate after corporate, you are seeing that they want to shift a part of their supply chain either to India, Vietnam, Bangladesh. And friends, we have seen how Bangladesh, in Vietnam, one company called Samsung became 25% of their GDP. We need 10 Samsungs like that in India. And obviously our exports could see a very different color. But sector after sector, we are seeing that opportunity. Just to throw some light in lighting, for example, the largest lighting company in the world is looking at India as the export hub. And similarly, in many other sectors, we are seeing that, happen. So I think PLI is becoming and the China strategy is becoming a very important part. And I think that's something which we should keep in mind from a manufacturing. I don't know how many of you know, there's a website called Invest India. I would urge all of you to please have a look at Invest India. It's a nodal agency of the government, developed 5 years back. They are the nodal agency. If any company wants to set up a factory in India, they contact them. You would all be surprised to know that 8 state governments have already tied up with them. And online, you can see about 60,000 hectares of land as a corporate sitting outside India. And you can choose. And more states are partnering with Invest India to make sure everything is there. In January, they plan to have a soft launch where an outside company can just go and log into that portal and apply everything in just one window. And it's Invest India and the other ministries which will coordinate and grant approval within 30 days. If approval is not granted within 30 days without any reason, the Babu who has not done it, his salary will start deducting from the 31st day. That is the kind of thrust we are putting in bringing FDI. You all will be knowing, last year we had $74 billion flowing into FDI in India, which was one of the worst years in terms of global GDP. And this year to date, already $34 to $35 billion has come in FDI. Despite of all lockdowns, despite of virus pandemic, there's a huge interest. I was speaking to the head of Invest India, and according to him, in the month of March before the pandemic started, they were working on $60 to $65 billion of proposals to be looked into India. In the last 8 months, the pipeline has expanded from 62 to $160 billion. That's a huge pipeline, friends, of companies who have interest in India, want to diversify their supply chains and want to have establishment in India. The reason I'm spending so much of time is to give you all a broader picture of what's happening at the ground level, so that finally, if something happens over the next 2, 3, 4 years, and I always believe every crisis brings an opportunity. It's an opportunity for India this time to ride the economic power wave which China did 20, 25 years back. And if we can do it with our policies, we can do with our execution, I think we will come to know later that 2020 probably was a sitter, and probably we didn't give too much of attention to that. But these are actual things which are happening on ground. This is not something which I'm making on my own. What I'm hearing from companies, what I'm hearing from sector leaders, influential people, is that a lot is happening on the ground on the manufacturing side. And this is something which you should keep in mind. The third important point, which friends, nobody is talking about, but I'm seeing early signs changing, is the residential real estate sector. I've been negative almost for 6-7 years, but I am seeing early drivers being in place for the uptick in the residential real estate. Mortgage rates are, or the bank loan rates are almost 20-year lowest rates. The property prices are at its best levels if somebody wants to buy. Almost time correction for 7-8 years now on the residential. Consolidation has happened in the after era. Every city, 25 top 30 builders are kind of gaining the market share. And if the elephant, which is real estate, which has been sleeping, wakes up, friends, 200 industries along with it starts to do well, whether it be pipes, cement, paints, electrical appliances, consumer durable, mattress, everything starts to see growth once the elephant, which is residential real estate, starts to see. We have seen that recent data coming out of Mumbai. We have seen the data out of Maharashtra and other cities. And it's quite encouraging to see that 40-50% growth in Maharashtra in the month of October and November has equally been strong on the registration data. My sense is if other states also follow the suit, what Maharashtra did on stamp duty cuts, and a lot of French players who were thinking of buying for last few years, and the mortgage rates and the calculations are now supporting, and the builders are also wanting cash flows. So they are willing to, do a deal with you. I think if residential real estate starts picking up, I think the overall industry cycle starts to see growth momentum starting to happen. So I think by and large at the ground level, things have started moving. Yes, the concern on virus is there. We have seen that in the northern latitude countries and cities. The second wave has started, or the third wave, whichever way you can put it out. And with winter setting in India, also that risk is there in the northern part of India, where winter is severe. So all those risks we should keep in mind. That's why I said valuations are no longer cheaper. I won't suggest all of you to go all out at one go and start investing today. If you wanted to, have it in a staggered manner over a period of time, so that if corrections happen, you benefit out of it as well. Couple of risk factors which I see in the market. I think the one of the reasons has been obviously liquidity. We have seen the Fed, which is a central bank in US, their balance sheet have expanded by almost 3 times in the last 10 years. $7 trillion का उनका balance sheet हो गया है, and a large part of that expansion has come in the 3 months, which is March, April, May, and that has fueled liquidity across global and emerging markets. And I think that can only reverse once Fed starts to raise interest rates, if inflation starts to kick in. And that's the global worry, कि अगर थोड़ा महंगाई जो दिख रहा है, हर कंट्री अपने इनवर्ड देख रहा है, ग्लोबलाइजेशन जो 10-15 साल से थीम थी, वो कहीं ना कहीं बैक बर्नर में जा रही है. तो डर ये है लोगों के कि महंगाई दर कहीं बढ़ने नहीं लगे. अगर महंगाई बढ़ने लगी तो सेंट्रल बैंक आज नहीं तो कभी ना कभी इंटरेस्ट रेट ब्याज दर को बढ़ाएंगे. And I think that's the biggest worry which all of us have in the markets, that can interest rates, which have been a driver for equity market P and valuations, starts to come get punctured. And I think that's a genuine risk one should keep in mind, that in India also, that inflation has been kept at 7 to 7.5% for 7-8 months now. But I think liquidity, which has been tightened over the last 3 years, last 1-1.5 साल में liquidity बहुत सही है. M3 जो मनी सप्लाई मैं ट्रैक करता हूँ, वो 12-13% से ग्रो कर रहा है, जहां की इस साल हमारी जीडीपी में डिक्लाइन होगा. सो आई थिंक द रिस्क व्हिच यू ऑल शुड kind of closely watch is inflation coming back globally and interest rate reversal, because आज 18 ट्रिलियन डॉलर की बॉन्ड्स नेगेटिव है, तो एवरीबडी वांट्स रिटर्न, एवरीबडी इज चेजिंग इक्विटीज, और कहीं ना कहीं थोड़े थोड़े पॉकेट्स में बबल हो गया है. कल आपने देखा कि एयरबीएनबी का आईपीओ लिस्ट हुआ, $40 प्री आईपीओ की बात कर रहे थे, 50 हुआ, 60-65 के बीच में उसने प्राइस किया, और $146 पर एयरबीएनबी का आईपीओ लिस्ट हुआ. $100 बिलियन से ऊपर का मार्केट कैप हो गया. तो कई पॉकेट्स में एक्सेस क्रिएट हो रहे हैं. वी शुड बी कॉशियस अबाउट दैट. बट ऑन द अदर हैंड, there are some good companies which are doing good job, not only in India, globally also. And I think they are getting rewarded. So our focus is to ride on sustainable businesses. Our focus is to make sure that companies become stronger and larger after every crisis. And that's what is happening. And I think if they can execute well in the opportunity which is presented across sectors, I think we should be seeing many companies moving to the next orbit in India and after a long time. And I think I remain a bit positive on that aspect, that bottom up basis पर काफी सारी opportunities आज भी मुझे दिख रही है. अगर मैं last 5 साल देखता हूँ तो market was driven by 8-10 stocks and बहुत polarization हो गया था profits में भी और market cap में भी. Last 5-6 महीने में आपने देखा कि broad base इस बार rally हुई है. And after 3 years, Nifty is underperforming mid and small cap index, which has not happened after 2017. But still on a 5-year basis, mid and small caps are lower than what it has been. If I look at our funds, Kotak Emerging, Kotak Small Cap, Kotak Pioneer, or Kotak Balance Advantage, हम सब lifetime high NAV पर हैं, despite of their respective indexes being down. तो हमने अच्छे stock selection और risk management के साथ ये प्रयत्न किया है कि हम अल्फा जनरेट कर पाए and we can add value to most of the investors. So I think going forward also, India will be all about bottom-up stock picking. I think there are many companies and entrepreneurs who have come out of this crisis very strong. उन्होंने ये देख लिया कि ऐसा भी समय आ सकता है जहां पर revenues zero हो सकते हैं. So I think this is something which I'm watching out very closely, that which are the companies which can move to the next cycle, next orbit, next size and scale. And if we can rightly piggy bang on those companies and managements, our job will be done over the next 3-5 years. So my strategy is King Kong to Gorilla. अपने पोर्टफोलियो में 30-40 गोरिल्लाज रखो, उसमें से कोई ना कोई बड़ा किंग कॉन्ग बनेगा. मुझे भी नहीं पता कौन बनेगा आज, बट वो 40-50 जो किंग कॉन्ग हैं, गोरिल्लाज हैं, उसमें से एक ना या 5 या 10 कोई ना कोई किंग कॉन्ग बनेंगे और वही अपना प्रयास रहेगा कि उस किंग कॉन्ग को अपने राइड कर पाए. एंड आई थिंक दैट्स समथिंग which is very sacrosanct to all of us. And finally, I think from a earnings perspective, अगर नेक्स्ट ईयर नॉर्मलाइज्ड ईयर रहा जहां कोई लॉकडाउन नहीं है, GDP should come back to 6-7% growth because of the base. And our sense is that private sector banks should drive earnings growth in Nifty and overall markets. And if next year we think Nifty can do 650-640 rupees of EPS, that's roughly about almost 21 times 1 year forward the Nifty is trading at. A lot of people looking at the past can say that it's expensive. It's no longer cheap, friends. I will be very, very categorical. We should be conscious of the fact that valuations are no longer cheap. But is it too expensive or in euphoric zone? Answer is no. Many people are still waiting for the correction to happen. And everybody will be, waiting कि कब correction हो. Because 9.5 से 12,000 तक हर आदमी redeem करता चला गया कि ये तो bear market rally है, यहाँ तो पैसा liquidity पर चल रहा है, this will correct. And all of have been surprised that the strength of the market has been phenomenal. I would suggest that if you are neutral equities, don't go underweight too much. But if you are underweight at any correction or over a STP or SIP, try to make sure that you invest into the markets over a period of time. I think over the next decade, there is a reasonable amount of probability that emerging markets could make a comeback, which has not happened over the last 10 years. I could see early signs of growth drivers being seeded into the economy, which probably can take us to the next level of economic growth. And हम सब जो $5-4 trillion की बात कर रहे हैं, कहीं ना कहीं वो reality होता हुआ नजर आ रहा है. So yes, there will be intermediate volatility, there will be intermediate corrections, but will I get too jittered by that? Answer is no. And our focus will be to look at bottom-up stock picking. Easy money is behind us, macro trade is behind us, friends. But I think bottom-up basis, I still find a lot of opportunities. And hence I believe that good stock picking will be rewarded in the next 3-5 years. As we speak, this year will be 6 to 7% earnings growth. मई जून में जब हम थे तो हम सोच रहे थे कि डिक्लाइन होगा अर्निंग्स में निफ्टी में, बट जिस हिसाब से सेकेंड और थर्ड और फोर्थ क्वार्टर की विजिबिलिटी है उस हिसाब से लग रहा है कि 6 से 7% अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ आएगा. And next year being FY22 being a more normalized year, we can expect 20 to 22% of earnings growth in Nifty. And that being the case, the market is pricing in some kind of a recovery already because markets are lead indicators. But if FY23 turns out to be a growth year, that market is not pricing in today. That probably markets will come to know 6 to 7 months down the line. And probably there we will take a call whether FY23 will see double-digit earnings growth or not. But if next year we see a double-digit earning growth, it will be after 8 years that Nifty will see double-digit earnings growth. And we have not seen double-digit earnings for almost 7 years now. So friends, just keep these thoughts in mind before you take a call that our markets very expensive, markets are at peak. There are a lot of noises being made because we have seen and anchoring ourselves from a March lows. But that may not be the right way to look at markets right now. You look at markets over the last 3-5 years, and broader market has still not done anything over the last 3-5 years. And I think there are still opportunities awaiting for us. Intermediate correction volatility, I said, is a part and parcel. It should happen. That will make sure that the weak hands and the non-believers are dropped out of the train, which always is a healthy part. But over the next 3 years, I continue to remain a lot more optimist on the way things are being progressed in India. And I, from bottom of my heart, believe that this is a golden opportunity for India where geopolitics is aligned. Everybody is looking upon India. We have a strong leadership. The macros are in place. We have one of the best current account right now, balance of payment. We have seen one of the best in the last many years. Currency is stable. FDI interest in the country is humongous. $160 billion is not a small pipeline we are talking about. So all these things probably are giving us early indication that we may be in the next leg of growth if we execute it well. And we need to keep a close watch on that. So just wanted to share all these thoughts that finally stock markets are drivers and slaves of earnings. And if earnings comes in over the next 1 or 2, 3 years as we are thinking about, then markets may not see the March 23rd lows again. Never say never in the markets, but very low probability that we retest that 7,500 Nifty again on a medium term basis. So probably I'll stop here and I'll be more than happy to take questions if anybody has. Thanks, Amay.
Thanks a ton, Pankaj. And Pankaj, I think so this kind of confidence we were looking for, actually, what you spoke about. Now, I was just checking the set of questions which we have got from the investors, and I suddenly realized that you have almost answered all of them. But still, I will try to pick and choose some of them, and we will answer that. But Pankaj, as I mentioned earlier, that before we move on, probably I'll give you a 5-minute break, because we had asked 2 questions to our investors that when it comes to a long-term investment with real estate versus mutual fund, which one give you a better return? And if my colleague can show the PPT, I'll just try to show once again that the questions which we had asked was, one was regarding real estate and equity mutual fund over 15 years time. And of course, like 70% of the people are saying that equity mutual fund have given higher returns. And still 30% people feel that as a asset class, real estate is a better asset class. What we are doing at Nike Wealth, and this is what we actually want to highlight with everybody, with our all existing clients, that we are doing this research with all our clients. There is a data which I will show to you. So if you can move to the next slide. So in last 15 years, if you see, if you have invested in a property which is in Goregaon East, we have taken a premium property in Goregaon East. The property was bought in 2006 at 67 lakhs. And that valuation in 2020 would have been 1.9 crore. Whereas in equity mutual fund, diversified equity mutual fund, it's a purely a multi-cap kind of a portfolio, this 67 lakhs would have been 3.85 crore. That's a 4 times or as good as a 5 times returns. Now I'm sure that some of you might ask me a question that Ameya, 6 months back, 8 months back, this 3.85 crore was 30% down. I totally agree that that downside had come at that time. But let me highlight one more point on the property side also, that whether in April or May, were you able to sell any of your real estate? So that liquidity aspect when it comes to your real estate investment is an issue. And we have always seen that equity mutual fund as a asset class is always liquid. You can get that money in 3 days in your bank account. And though there was a lockdown, any kind of situation, you will never find a situation where the money has not come back to you. So again, like I am again saying that this is a data which is one illustration, but my team members will start reaching to you. Some of them have already started reaching to you. We would love to analyze far more data when it comes to investment in real estate versus investment in equity mutual fund over a long period. By no means I'm saying over here that you shouldn't invest in property as an asset class. Definitely you should have some allocation, but we are discussing over here about having multiple real estate properties as an investment. We have come across clients who invest 2 properties, 3 properties, 5 properties, and that becomes their core investment part. Whether to have that or not is a question mark, and that is what we are discussing over here. About a second question, if I come to, the second question was a very emotionally attached asset class, which is gold. So again, I would like to show you what is the actual result. Again, this is last 10 years. If we can move to the next slide. Again, the outcome is almost the same, 70-30. But if 10 years back, we would have invested in gold, say 15 lakh rupees, the current value is 36 lakh rupees. Again, we have taken a fixed deposit also over here, though I didn't ask you a question or there was no option about fixed deposit. The fixed deposit, this return would have been at least doubling your money. 15 lakhs would become 30 lakhs. But in mutual fund, if you see, then this 15 lakhs has become 73 lakhs. If anybody wants the CAGR return, year-on-year returns, then this is coming out to be 17% year-on-year returns, whereas gold is 9.7% year-on-year return. So almost double year-on-year returns you have got on mutual fund. And again, I would like to highlight the same thing, that I am nowhere mentioning that don't invest anything gold or gold is bad, you shouldn't invest in gold, but have a proper asset allocation. See what is the right, what kind of risk appetite you have in your portfolio, and try to have right allocation towards different asset classes. And your financial advisor is the best judge who can tell you that how much exposure you can have for a certain asset class. Regarding real estate, again, I would like to mention that my team will get back to you, and we would love to get this data from you about your experience about investment in real estate and how much returns it has generated over the years. So I'm requesting all the investors, our existing investors, to please share that data. There are a lot of aspects we are deciding to consider over there, that rent you have earned over the years, the renovation cost you have incurred while maintaining that real estate. All those factors will be considered over there. So please, I'm requesting all of you to have that assistance. And okay, so now Pankaj, let's move on to our question and answer session. So as I told you again, that there are a lot of questions which we have already covered, but still probably you can give slightly different angle. There are 2 questions which are almost similar from 2 of our different clients. I'll mention both the clients over here. One is Mr. Pawan Singhania and the other is Vijay Nallawala. Both of them are asking that, is the market overvalued, and is it wise to top up in the equity investment at this juncture, considering the rich valuation? So about the valuation, you already spoke, Pankaj, but do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so it's a very good question and a doubt in the minds of most of all of us. Uh, if you look at from a PE perspective, answer is yes. Relative to the history, obviously Nifty PE, which used to trade at 17 and a half time 1 year forward, we are talking about 21 times 1 year forward, assuming that recovery in earnings will be stronger next year, right? So clearly from that history perspective, we are no longer cheap. We are slightly into the fair value plus zone. So obviously one is always worried. But if you look at from a price to book perspective, which is the book value, which is the net worth of the profits earned over last many years plus the raised capital, we are in line with history. We are not very expensive in that aspect. So my sense is that one parameter only P should not be judged. P should be looked in the context of two things. One, in the past, we never had negative interest rates globally. And today, if you ask me what is the most expensive asset class, it's bonds. If you're almost, at 50 basis points or negative yield, you're virtually giving 100 P to a bond, right? You're not giving 100 P to a equity, which is growth asset class. So bonds are far more expensive in today's term globally than equities. And equities should not be looked in isolation. That's why I said the lower the interest rate, the lower discounting rate, the higher the PE it is, right? So in order to get really worried on a very large correction in equity markets, we should be having a strong opinion that interest rates now has bottomed out and it's probably moving on to the upward direction, which we still don't have any evidence right now, right? So equities from a valuation perspective, maybe compared to the history in a higher zone, but when you look at other environment, which is interest rates, the opportunity to invest in some other asset classes not there. I think equities is not that expensive and euphoric, which we have seen. 92s, 87s, 2000, where the pockets of market went into different zone. We are seeing those excesses being in today's market also. I gave an example of Airbnb, which got listed yesterday, right? Very small revenue, but $100 billion. Tesla, $600 billion market cap. All the auto majors combined together is one Tesla market cap, right? Those are maybe the pockets of excesses where markets are willing to discount next 5 year, 10 years of growth and give them that right now. But by and large, if you look at the broader market, I don't find them very expensive. So our suggestion would be that stagger your investment over the next 6, 8, 12 months and have slightly more exposure to broader market funds, which you not have over the last 3 years, rather than only waiting for the correction. And this time also has proved that the people have lost more money waiting for the correction than the actual correction itself. It's a classic Peter Lynch, saying, and I think it's been repeated again this time. So I would not jump in with all my money today at one go. I will stagger it over the next 6 months. Will be a more prudent strategy rather than just jumping at one go and having a fear of missing out. But don't look only at P. Look at other aspects which is making P at 21 times. We have never seen in the history of capital markets negative yield of $18 trillion bonds giving negative interest rates. So if you really need to be worried about, it's bonds. They are trading at a P which is 80, 90, 100, not the equities at the moment.
Thank you, Pankaj. Pankaj, the next question is almost on the same lines. It's from one of our investors, Mr. Raghu Lulla. He's asking that should we book profits now or is it the right time? So something which I felt that connecting.
If you're overweight equities, we will advise you to book profits. But if you are underweight equities or slightly neutralish equities, please don't be out of this asset class completely. I have seen people and big learned people in the last 6 months who have used the rally from 9,500 Nifty till 12,000 to just keep booking profits. And now they are finding it difficult to enter into the markets. So unless you are very highly exposed to equities, having a large overweight on equities, I would suggest, yes, probably you can bring and book some profits and bring home some money. But if you are underweight equities any which ways, don't go zero equities at this point of time.
Thank you. So the next question is from Mr. Praveen Malkar. He's asking that if you look at pre-COVID, Indian economy was not in a great shape.
Absolutely.
And now since market has shown 100% recovery, does it mean that the worst is over now?
So a large part of economy, and I said entrepreneurs needs to be applauded this time. The way Indian entrepreneurs, Indian companies have come back strongly and shown the resilience, I think it has surprised all of us, right? Pre-COVID, I think we were having a problem of money supply growth. Let me elaborate what I mean by that. There's an economic term called money supply, which is the entire supply of money which is available into the economy. The data which we track is a term called M3, money supply M3. And that was growing for the last few years at 7-8%. Our nominal GDP was growing at 10 to 12%, which is real GDP plus inflation. But for every unit of growth, there was less amount of unit of credit available into the economy for that growth. And as a result, you were seeing corporates being strangulated in a way for cash flows. Cash flow was getting elongated, people were not paying on time, and that impacted growth to a large extent. What happened in the last 15 months, even pre-COVID, was that we saw huge amount of flows either in FDI or FI being started to come in India. The gold imports went down, the crude oil prices went down, and that created a balance of payment surplus in the economy, which means that we had more forex reserves, and you saw that at $575 billion. And that gave RBI enough ammunition from a liquidity standpoint of view. So today, as we speak, more than 6 lakh crores is been parked by banks with RBI at 3.5%. They are raising money in deposits at 5, 5.5, 4.5, whatever that number is. And they're going back to RBI at 3.5%. At some point, they will use that money to lend it to the actual economy. And that's what we have seen in mortgage rates. Why the property rates have come down? Because banks feel that that's a more secured asset to lend. And that's how our bank itself have brought down the mortgage rates to 6.75. And many banks probably could lend at 6.5. And tax adjusted, when did we see such rates happening in the Indian economy? So I think lower interest rates, labor norms, which I forgot to touch, is becoming more and more easier. 41 central laws have been combined into 4 laws with the recent labor laws we saw. And more states are adopting it now. And we saw the agri reform. We are seeing reforms on the land side now with capital land prices coming down. So all the factors of production, land, labor, capital, if it starts becoming cheaper, and with the tax rate cut, which we did last year to 25% and 17% for the new factories, I think as a combination, it's a great cocktail for anybody to come in India and invest and have a supply chain out of India. So I think look at from that perspective that pre-COVID, were these things available to the entrepreneur? Answer is no. If you have good books, trust me, people are raising money at 6%, 7%, good corporates. A government of India corporate is raising money at 4%. A 90-day, 1-year money at 4%. When did we hear about such things? So I think it's a cocktail and a mix. And I think if we can keep the easy liquidity on for some more time in India, I think you will see the M3 supply being higher. As we speak, the M3 growth is 12-13% in India, money supply growth, and GDP being negative. So there's ample liquidity this time. इस क्राइसिस में आपने ये नहीं सुना कि ये कॉर्पोरेट उड़ गया, वो आदमी उड़ गया, उसने हाथ खड़ा कर दिया, ये वाला नहीं सुना. क्यों नहीं सुना? क्योंकि liquidity this time available into the system is good enough, which can scale through the bad times. So I think we should applaud the government this time in the measures they have taken. And I believe we have acted in a very different way. Everybody gave stimulus in April, May, June. Every central banker, we said no. If people are sitting at home, even if you give money in their pockets, they will not go and spend now, right? That will not bring the growth back. Bring the growth back and give stimulus only when growth starts recovering. And that's how you have seen now in the last 3-4 months, as economy is starting to get normalized, government is coming with infrastructure spend, government is coming with PLI schemes, government is making sure that we give entrepreneurs enough incentive from a growth perspective. And I think this is the stance where only India has adopted globally. That's why I say that the path we have charted this time for ourselves, right from the lockdown, where everybody criticized the strictest lockdown in the world, to the way we have given stimulus and supported the economy, has been very different from the rest of the world. So I am hopeful as an Indian that this time probably the destiny for us could be very different. We will come to know in the next 3-5 years only that whether we did the right job at this moment of time. But I think the world is really looking to us. Every day, FI is pumping in 3,000-4,000 crores. Why? We are not believing in ourselves, but the Gora is believing in us. November saw the highest monthly FI inflow ever in the history of capital markets. $8 billion came into India. And we are redeeming, saying that market महंगा हो गया है, सस्ता हो गया, ये debate चले जा रहा है last. So I'm just saying that there are certain things which are happening differently into the country. And just keep an open mind. I'm not saying believe me or believe anybody else. Just keep an open mind and evaluate things. Don't just only look at P and say that market महंगा हो गया, बेच दो, सब कुछ बेच दो. नहीं.
Okay, that was brilliant. I mean, it was actually like a music to our ears. This is what actually we want to hear, and this is a reality. I mean, this is what is happening as the money is coming in. It's more and more sign that the foreigners are far more confident about our growth. On that basis, Pankaj, there is a question which is actually coming from many investors. I'll just quote one of the investors over here who has asked this question specifically. It's Mr. Gandhar Nigudkar. He's asking that is growth at any price taking over the traditional value investing in terms of returns?
This question is one which is close to my heart. Okay, let me start with you with few data points. The value investing in the so-called Graham style, which is low price to earning, low price to book, has suffered in the last decade or so, right? And it's been the worst strategy from an investment perspective. Let me give you a data for this calendar year. If you were an investor in US and you went long, which is you bought all the high dividend yield stocks, 4%, 5%, 6% dividend yield stocks, and you shorted the growth stocks, which are low dividend yield and a high P, your portfolio underperformed by 26%. 26%, okay? So you went long high dividend yield stocks, you went short on low dividend yield high growth stocks, your portfolio in the US underperformed by 26%. The similar thing if you did in Europe, your portfolio underperformed by 32%. Right? So value investing has been, penalized over not this year, over the last 8-10 years. And as our strategy, there will be phases where value does well, right? But we believe that if the underlying businesses are inferior, for a very short period, you make a trade, but over sustainable period, compounding will not happen, because finally the value of the business or the value of the stock is nothing but the value of the intrinsic value of the business which it comes from. And if the business is facing disruption, for example, ESG disruption, environmental social governance disruption, right? We have seen thermal plants globally getting closed down because renewals are becoming a very big theme. So nobody will buy a thermal plant even if the company is trading at half a time price to book, because the terminal value is negative for that company. So why will an investor go and buy it? So the dividend becomes only high dividend, right? For us as fund managers, and that's my style, I believe that value is nothing but the expectation of return we should have from a stock. I am not a pure low PE, low PB. I see that if the business can generate inherent value over longer periods, and the price today which is trading at is lower than that intrinsic value, that's a value for me. Value only doesn't mean that I buy at 7p, sell at 10p, or buy a half a book and let it go to 1. If you would have done that in PSU banks, for example, in the last 10 years, you would have got rogered, right? The PSU bank basket has given you negative return in a decade. And everybody got stuck कि ये तो आधा टाइम बुक से और क्या नीचे जाएगा. That point became 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, right? And you lost money on the capital side. So I said that finally, I always believe this, that all of us think valuation is the horse and growth is the cart. It's valuation which drives the cart. But actually, growth is the horse and valuation is the cart. If growth keeps coming on the company, valuation never gets cheap unless there is a disruption risk which is sitting out there. So for me, it's very important that I predict the growth of the company rightly rather than worrying too much about valuation. And I have learned from my own mistakes, Amey. I sold off stocks very early on, looking at the P only and thinking that they have become very expensive. But the growth kept on surprising me and the P never became cheap. So growth is the horse, valuation is the cart, not the other way around. But we all keep worried about valuation, and we spend very little time on predicting growth of that particular company. If we spend more time predicting the growth of that company and the opportunity, I think we can justify valuation over medium term. But obviously, we need to be very cognizant about the excesses. As of now, excesses are there in many pockets globally, and we should take cognizance of that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks. Pankaj, I'll move on to another 2-3 questions. I hope you won't mind.
Yes. Please go ahead.
So there is one question from Mr. Ramasubramaniam. He's saying that what is the scope for small cap in next 2 years, and whether the upward movement of the index will sustain and for how long? I think so. Just a prediction.
Let me give you one very interesting data point to all of you friends. Everybody thinks mid and small cap is a bad name. And obviously you guys have seen our funds. In the last 10 years, emerging has given 16-17% CAGR return. So has the small cap fund. And this 10 years have been the most troublesome for any portfolio manager, right? Because you have never gained the confidence कि सब ठीक चल रहा है. फिर चलता है, फिर कुछ disruption आ जाता है, global, political, and so forth. But if you have created that CAGR over the last 10 years, despite of all disruption in this segment, that means there's an opportunity. And I believe that if you look at 101th company, market cap में, जो top 10, 100 companies तो large cap हो गए, 101 से लेके अगर आप 650 companies को market cap में track करते हो, which is a universe of 550 कंपनियां, हर आदमी क्या बोलेगा क्राइसिस के बाद मिड एंड स्मॉल कैप बेच देने का, बिकॉज वहां तो बहुत हालत खराब है, राइट? बट दैट इज नॉट द केस फ्रेंड्स. वी डिड एन एनालिसिस. ये 550 कंपनियों में 220 कंपनी ऐसी हैं जो अपनी कैटेगरी के लीडर्स हैं. अगर वो एक प्लाईवुड कंपनी है, वो हो सकता है स्मॉल कैप गिनी जाती है सेबी के मार्केट कैप डेफिनेशन में, बट वो अपने प्लाईवुड में वो लीडर है, पूरे इंडिया के प्लाईवुड इंडस्ट्री का लीडर है. सिमिलरली एक टाइल कंपनी है, वो हो सकता है मिड कैप गिनी जाती है, लेकिन वो ब्रांड, वो कंपनी अपने पूरे इंडिया में लीडर है. इसी तरह करके अगर वो 550 कंपनियों में देखें तो 220 कंपनियां ऐसी हैं जहां पर वो लोग अपने कैटेगरी के लीडर्स हैं. और उसमें अगर आप 100 रुपया लगाते इक्वल वेटेड वो 220 कंपनियों में 10 साल पहले, आज वो 100 रुपया आपका 1000 रुपया है. Right? This is data which I'm factually telling you. So all name of small cap is good or bad is a myth. What one should attempt in the mid and small cap space to have the right category leaders. वो 220-40 कंपनियां, 250 कंपनियों में कैटेगरी लीडर्स जो सही हैं, उन पर आप इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं क्या? और वो ग्रो करेंगे, सेक्टर ग्रो करेगा तो आपका पैसा अपने आप बनेगा। और हमने देखा केमिकल्स में, कंज्यूमर ड्यूरेबल्स में, वायर्स में, पेंट्स में, ऑटो एंड्स में, ओईएम्स में, टू व्हीलर्स में, इनरवेयर में, कितनी सारी कंपनियां स्मॉल कैप ही थी और धीरे धीरे वो ग्रोथ करते गई and they become mid and then become large. But you have to write that growth cycle. And in my view, there's a huge research arbitrage sitting in this space. लार्ज कैप में तो 25 एनालिस्ट एक ही कंपनी को ट्रैक करते हैं, लेकिन मिड एंड स्मॉल कैप में एक कंपनी को हो सकता है 2 एनालिस्ट भी नहीं ट्रैक कर रहे हैं। और आप अगर अपना ग्राउंड रिसर्च सही कर लो तो देयर इज अ वेरी हाई प्रोबेबिलिटी दैट यू मे sit with a multi-bagger over a period of time. And over the last 3-4 years, this segment has suffered. I believe that over the next 2-3 years, broader markets will do far better than the narrow indices. And there's an opportunity with the category leaders after the crisis, they doing better than some of the other companies. So that's why I say stock picking will be very, very important. And I believe that over the next 2-3 years, if you have lower exposure on mid and small cap, this is the time now to increase that exposure.
Thank you, Pankaj. Pankaj, on this same note about your last line, what you said, there is one question coming from, and it's a classic question actually. I'm sure that many investors have this on mind. Mr. Amarnath Saraf, he is asking us this question, that should I remain in MF or sell and invest in shares?
Saraf ji, right?
Yes, Mr. Saraf, Amarnath Saraf.
Saraf ji, agar you can study balance sheet, if you can do research, please go ahead and follow your conviction. But please don't go on tips. Please don't go and buy कि उसने ये बोला आज ले लेता हूँ, उसने बोला ये बोला है बताया है ये ले लेता हूँ, क्योंकि वो आदमी जिसने आपको बताया वो 2 साल बाद जब गलत जाएगा तो आपको दिखेगा भी नहीं. So the point is that today everybody thinks they are good stock pickers. But remember the last 2-3 years where value erosion happened at a very fast pace. We saw groups after groups going into NCLT and destroying the wealth, and good brands which we never thought 5 years, 10 years back, they will have such a tough time. So I think investing over a longer periods of time is an art and a science both. In the short term, you may be lucky enough, but if you think you have the capability, you have the time, you have the bandwidth to do research and a deep research over a period of time, then only go into stocks rather than give it to Amaya, give it to Nikhil, give it to the fund managers who know their job in and out. And 1-1.5% में आपका वो पूरा manage करके दे रहे हैं. मतलब it's like a, I would say free thing where you, kind of, use your brain. But I think there is space for everybody, right? वो म्यूचुअल फंड के लिए भी है, पीएमएस के लिए भी है, इंडिविजुअल इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए भी है, जिसको जैसे सूट करे. बट एक ही आपका एफर्ट होना चाहिए, गलतियां नहीं होनी चाहिए, पैसा नहीं ओवर अ लॉन्गर टर्म नेगेटिव होना चाहिए. कैपिटल प्रोटेक्शन इज इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट. और अगर आप वो कर सकते हैं देन गो अहेड एंड इन्वेस्ट. बट इफ यू थिंक यू डोंट हैव दैट बैंडविड्थ, डोंट गो ऑन रूमर्स and just hearsay and invest. That's my only suggestion. Sarafji, I will give it to you.
Yeah, so I'd like to add here, Pankaj bhai. First of all, thank you very much for a wonderful session. It's always a treat listening to you with your granularity. I do not have a Demat account, and I don't invest in stocks directly on my own, because when I have geniuses like Pankaj bhai and others who can manage my money and keep do all the research, all those. I mean, the other thing is I keep meeting, I keep interacting with a lot of fund managers, so it's very easy for me to get tempted to start buying some stocks, to do what they are doing. But I think I've seen over a period of time, you are better off focusing on your core activity. Like Pankaj bhai is better off focusing on his core activity of managing stocks, managing his money for his investors. And if you choose a right advisor, you choose a right fund house who will take care of your money in a fiduciary responsibility, I think you're, like he said, you're better off with that 1.5% to even 2% for that matter. Cost doesn't matter. Actually, cost in our equity or investing is overrated, I believe, and performance or the returns that you make, compounding that you can make is underrated. So
Absolutely.
Very true. Great. So, Pankaj, the last question, and I have specifically kept this as a last question because, you know, as we are approaching the end of this year, 2020, it's like for the first time I'm listening to this that, you know, people are waiting to close this year. And in your mind, so the question is from Mr. Amit Y. I think so. He has not mentioned his last name completely. In your mind, which are the key events that could take the markets higher or lower in 2021?
See, I always believe predictions are a marketing tool. Okay. And that is going on for generations and generations. Go into 2020 starting and look at all the predictions globally by all the global pundits. Did anybody say COVID will be the biggest thing? Did anybody say 16 lakh people will die, 7 crore people will get infected? So prediction is a great marketing tool to sound intelligent, to sound very, important. In all humanity, I think I don't have the power of predictability too much, right? On the broader scale. But what I know that from a medium term perspective, what are the drivers which have been put in place in the economy? Are they working in the right direction? Which I explained to all of you. And to me, the biggest risk is interest rates. Today, because of lower interest rates, we are seeing what is happening globally into the equity markets. The liquidity, flush is very high. Any signs where we see interest rates bottoming out and reversal starting to happen for the medium term or a near term, that will be the risk. And with more and more countries looking inward into their supply chains and everybody in its own way saying, I want to be Atmanirbhar, not only in India, but globally, I think will bring in inflation at some point of time because China exported deflation across the globe, right? And if everybody wants to say that I want to look inward, I don't want to depend on China, even if it costs maybe slightly higher, or maybe the anti-dumping duty and all are there, I think that's something we should keep in mind that will come with a cost, that will means higher inflation, that will mean higher interest rates at some point of time. And higher interest rate means that P should ideally be adjusted to on a lower side because your discounting rate moves higher. So that is one risk we should keep in mind. The second risk, I think, is that world is surrounded by very strong leaders and everybody is very strong in its own way. I am a little worried on the geopolitical side with China driving its own agenda, Russia driving its own agenda, Korea driving its own agenda, uh, India having its own path of way of doing things. US still some time back had a very strong leader. So the geopolitical landscape is undergoing a massive change, and that can bring opportunity as well as worry for a lot of us. For example, a country like India is surrounded on all the sides by hostile neighbors, and that's a risk. So all these things are risks we should keep in the back of our mind. But from a medium term perspective, I think there are very important things happening on ground, which is making me a little more optimistic than the rest of the street. Time will only suggest that we execute and let it go this opportunity. But honestly speaking, in all humility and humbleness, the predictability of what will happen next near term, next year is a marketing tool to sound intelligent. I am extremely sorry I don't have that ability. I didn't know that COVID will be such a big event in 2020 when we started January. And nobody else also predicted that. So in all humility, I think we should take things as it comes, prepared for the worst in our portfolio management from a risk perspective. That only comes with diversification, good stock selection, good businesses, and making sure that we don't deviate from our discipline. Right now, momentum is going up. We should not get into the bandwagon of riding momentum, riding lower quality stocks. That is in my hand. What will happen to the market is not in my hand. Only thing is in my hand is my process. Only thing is in hand by that I control my IQ. I control my EQ, which is emotion quotient. Till that I can do that, I know good times, bad times will come and go. Over a period, I will be able to generate wealth for investors. And that's something which I am focused on. I spend very little time in predicting what will happen 3 months, 6 months later. In all humbleness, I would, kind of excuse myself with that question.
Pankaj, that is really great. And I'll tell you something which we have observed at Kotak very frequently, that whenever not only you, but any fund manager which we come across, that this humility, this modesty is something which we respect a lot. Your processes are rock solid, and that keep getting
Thank
us
you.
back to Kotak. So thanks a ton for taking out time for us, for our investors today. I'll request my colleague Yash to do a vote of thanks for you. And
I think Nikhil Bhai was saying something.
okay,
Yes, Nikhil
sorry,
Bhai.
I didn't see that.
No, absolutely. I think, see, one of the things that we've always looked at when we go and meet fund managers, or I think humility is one single thing that can actually separate people from giving good performance versus losing money. And I think hats off to you. I think this was my takeaway for tonight, that predictions are marketing tools. And Lao Tse has said, people who know do not predict, people who predict do not know anything. So I think that just reinforces our confidence with you as a fund manager. And
Thank you, Nikhil Bhai, for your kind words.
Over to you, Yash.
Thank you, Amay. Thank you, Nikhil sir. As we all are eagerly waiting for COVID-19 vaccine, your insights on market and economy is actually a vaccine to our investors from the fear of short-term so-called second wave of market crash. And I'm pretty sure that the result of this vaccine will be the ultimate wealth creation for all our investors. As Pankaj sir mentioned about Invest India website, I would like to highlight few insights from the websites, which are: the business request on the website is 2,47,759. And if you see, the investments which are in pipeline is almost $166 billion. I hope we all will log into the website and see how we all are progressing as a nation. On behalf of a 65-member team of Nike Wealth and Nike Insurance, I would like to thank you, sir, for being a part of Nike Wealth and highlight macro level data over just the liquidity which is driving the bullish market. Looking forward to have many more energetic conversations with you, sir. I would like to remind all our participants about our next webinar, which is exclusively for our investors. I would also like to thank all my colleagues of Nike Group who have been working hard in making every webinar a big success. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants for their active and positive participation. Nike Group requests everyone to stay happy, stay safe, happy weekend.
Thank you, Yash. Thank you, Nikhil.
Thank you,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Pleasure.
all the listeners and all the investors. Safe investing, happy investing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye. Have a great weekend to everybody.
You too.
Enjoy.
You too.
Bye.